Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full Time, where we take you around the world of soccer, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. Full Time is presented by the Game Sports Podcast and powered by 91 Network. You are listening to Season 5, Episode 18 of Full Time. I am your host, Daniel Scarpino, and with me is our co host, Gitano Gallo. Before we begin today's show, Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. With their two locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, you can download and access the Pizza Portal app so you can enjoy a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. We remind our listeners that recordings of Full Time occur weekly or bi weekly, and uploads to all of our platforms for public viewing and listening occur weekly or bi weekly as well. Folks, we welcome you back to Full Time, where it's all footy all the time. Gee, on this very blustery evening, practically a whiteout, how are you?
I am doing pretty all right. You said all footy all the time. I'm a little sore. We played in the league Tuesday, futsal last night with you and the boys. So I'm a little sore, but doing pretty all right now. How about you?
I am in the exact same books as you, on the same page and all the rest of it, but I too am doing very well, sir. In today's show, we will discuss the January transfer window, Europe's Big Five, the Carabao Cup, and the Champions League. As always, if anyone would like to listen to our previous content, please check us out at Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. And just before we get into today's show, we have a major announcement. Our podcast, Full Time, has a new sponsor. And we are proud to announce that that sponsor is Sioux Sports TV and SiouxSports.com. They have officially sponsored the Full Time podcast powered by 91 Network. A message that we would like to share to all of you who are listening regarding this new partnership and sponsorship. Sioux Sports fosters a gathering place of local, amateur, high school, and collegiate athletics, where all stories can be told, where all accolades can be honored, and where all achievements are justifiably credited. We are not limited to print space or corporate influence. We will chase the story that needs to be told. We do this because too many stories go untold, too many athletes go unnoticed, and too much, oftentimes, is not reported. We tell the story of teams and athletes in the Sault Ste. Marie and Algoma area. We are dedicated and passionate about delivering high quality amateur high school and collegiate sports broadcasts right here at home. Gitano, Sioux Sports has been a staple in our community here in Sault Ste. Marie and the Algoma area for what seems like forever. When you think of Sault Ste. Marie sports, whether it's the Greyhounds, junior hockey, rep hockey, high school sports, Algoma Athletics, Sioux College, anything at the recreational level, you do think of Sioux Sports TV and SiouxSports.com. So for us personally, this is just such an honor for us to be engaged in this partnership with Sioux Sports. But I wanted to hand it over to you to get your feelings on this one.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal to be like not just an article here or there like mentioning us, but to actually be like sponsored by a pillar in the Sault Ste. Marie sports community. Um, yeah, it's just it still kind of doesn't even feel real. Like we've been talking about it for a couple days now, and I'm still like in awe. Like I remember like reading articles on the website. I've watched the streams of some of the collegiate stuff, mostly the Algoma U women's soccer when my sister and you were assistant coaches. Like it's just so ingrained in kind of what we do in this community. So it's just it's super special to be even more involved with it now.
Yeah, without question. I think it kind of goes to show that the more time you put into something, the more outreach you have. And, we've partnered with something in the Sioux by way of sports, anyhow, that's absolutely massive. I don't think that there's anything bigger. In fact, I know that there's nothing bigger. So, again, just a huge honor for sure. And we're so excited for everything ahead with our partnership and sponsorship with Sioux Sports. So, we did want to give a huge thanks to our friend, fellow sports enthusiast and dedicated sports broadcaster Jay Hauslander for this opportunity. We look forward to working with you and all the amazing work that you present in our sports community. And to check out Sioux Sports, visit SiouxSports.com. That's SaultSports.com, as well as Sioux Sports TV on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And without further ado, Gaetano, and to everyone who has taken the time to tune in here today, let's kick off. The January transfer window is officially done and closed, and we will go over all of the final dealings from the final week of the transfer market in the world of football. And the following transfer market news comes from The Guardian, so be sure to check them out regarding all of the news from this year's January transfer market. First, it's John Durant, who goes from Aston Villa to Al Nassr for $64.4 million. With 12 goals in 29 appearances this season, the 21-year-old secures a big money move to the Saudi Pro League. Durant secures generational wealth and some with this move, so I wanted to pass it over to you, sir. The floor is yours.
Yeah, this is not the typical Saudi Pro League move that we've seen, where they kind of go for guys in their late 20s, early 30s, kind of on the decline. Picking up one of kind of like the breakout stars of the Premier League the last like year and a half. 21 years old, so still has plenty of time to come back to Europe after this stint. But really, so he left Chicago Fire in MLS in January of 2023, he is reportedly making double his yearly MLS salary per week in Saudi Arabia. So it's really hard to get mad at him for turning that down. It's just ridiculous. He's been in fantastic form. I'm sure he's going to go there and absolutely light it up. A little disappointed that he's left the Premier League. Just selfishly, I want all the best players to play in the Premier League. Like, it's just for the fun of the league. But I'm sure he'll be back in Europe at some point. But yeah, like you said, generational wealth.
Yeah, I think I don't have the exact figures in front of me, but from what I read, I think it's 300,000 per week, tax free, as opposed to whatever he was
The
making.
dream.
Yeah, whatever he was
The
making.
dream.
The dream. So again, can't put that perspective. But yeah, selfishly, you do want the best players playing in the Premier League and playing in Europe, but certainly don't knock him for that, because I'm sure that I would take the exact same opportunity. I'm certainly not going to say no. But yeah, well, I bet you that we will see him back in Europe, to your point, like you said, one day. Nico Gonzalez goes from Porto to Manchester City for $49.8 million. The 23-year-old midfielder signs a 4.5-year deal after City paid the $60 million release clause. Gonzalez says, quote, "It's an honor to play for Pep Guardiola," end quote. This is an ideal acquisition, I would think, to cover for Rodri during his injury, but I'm going to pass it over to you because maybe it goes even beyond that.
Yeah, so obviously the short term is he can play defensive midfield. It's the one thing that City have been missing basically this whole season since Roger went out with the ACL injury. And what's better than that is he can play a little further up. He's not just a straight defensive midfielder, can play further forward. So you can now partner him with Rodri when the two of them are back, presumably next season. I don't expect Rodri back this season, but like the fact they can play in midfield together, or you can rotate them in and out, I think it's great. But he's the La Masia Academy out of Barcelona, so you kind of know that the on-the-ball stuff is just kind of going to be automatic for him. But the other thing is he's a big physical midfielder too, which is something City have desperately needed in Rodri's absence. So I think this is just, if we had done this in the summer, it would have been probably the best transfer of the window. But obviously a little late getting him in, but super happy to have him. I think he's just going to fit right in here.
Yeah, and I feel like with one of these signings, especially when you're in a position where you need a particular player to fill up a specific position, Arsenal, it's better late than never that you bring these types of players in. So again, he does provide that cover, but to your point, it probably goes beyond that because he can partner with Rodri next season. Javi Simons goes from Paris Saint-Germain to RB Leipzig for $41.8 million. Leipzig signed the playmaker on a 2.5-year deal after a successful loan spell with 15 goals and 19 assists in 60 games. Take it away.
Yeah, we've seen what Xavi Simons has been doing at Leipzig for the last year and a bit now. He just fit like a glove there. And it's just a no-brainer that they want to sign him permanently. He's basically just been their best player since he showed up. And again, the project at PSG, he never really fit in. He kind of, when they brought him in, he was too young to be integrated into that group. Now that he's kind of getting older, they're going back to a younger group. They have a bunch of players. They just signed the Georgian playmaker from Napoli, whose name I still cannot pronounce. to play on the left wing, as well as Bradley Barcola. Like, it's just an overload of players there. So he was never going to get that game time in Paris. He's been killing it at Leipzig. So it just makes sense for all parties.
I think it does make sense indeed. And I actually think that Leipzig are going to do wonders with this. And I think he's going to do wonders at Leipzig. Santiago Gimenez goes from Feyenoord to Milan for 26.6 million. Milan is delighted to have signed the 22-year-old who already has 32 caps for Mexico. He will wear the number 7 shirt. Gee, how good of a signing is this for Milan?
I think this is great. That's kind of been the biggest issue for them. They haven't really had like a real outright 9. The last one they had was Olivier Giroud, but he was very much on the last legs of his career at that point. So they've been missing that, like, just an outright number 9 poacher is going to bang goals for you, and they got exactly that in Santiago Gimenez. Still, like, only 22, 23 years old, has European experience playing with Feyenoord. I think this is just a banger of a deal for them.
Yeah, without doubt. And again, better late than never, because up until this point in the window, a lot of Milan fans were very upset that something hadn't happened, but they got the right guy in my opinion, just in the nick of time. So kudos to them. Patrick Dorgu goes from Lecce to Manchester United for 25.1 million. The versatile fullback at age 20 is incredibly proud to call himself a Manchester United player, he told the press, after signing a deal running to 2030 with an option of an extra year. Gitano, break down this deal for us.
Yeah, this is a weird one for January, typically going after kind of these younger kind of future squad players. It's typically what you do in the summer, but obviously in United's case, doing it now, again, better late than never, right? Bring in the body. I don't think he's entirely a game changer for them at the moment. And still, only 20 years old. We haven't seen too much of him in Serie A this year. So it's not even a big enough sample size to say, oh, like, he might be fantastic or whatever. But I think for the 20 odd million that they're going to pay for him, I don't think it's terrible. He doesn't have to light the world up for them right now. And even if he averages out at, an okay Premier League left back, the 25 million ish they spent on him is probably still well spent.
Yeah, and I think just from what I've read, and again, to be perfectly honest, I knew nothing about the player. For the way that the Manchester United manager wants to have the team playing in that 3-4-3 with the wing backs, that this player sort of fits the profile of that. And it's kind of the basis for what the manager is going to be looking for moving forward. So I think this is almost like a statement signing in that we're going to be bringing in this type of player, maybe not because he has exponential quality, but because he fits the system that the manager wants to play, which at this moment in time, United practically have no players that could play the 3-4-3 system the way that the manager wants to play it. So I think this is more of a statement signing than anything. Stefanos Tsimas goes from Nuremberg to Brighton for 20.8 million. The Greece U21 forward, who has 10 goals in 18 games this term, signs a contract running to 2030, but he will stay in Germany until the end of the season. G, your thoughts here?
I like it a lot. 19 years old, plenty of like room for him to grow, but already banging them in at senior level in the Bundesliga too. But still, like, there's some really quality teams in there. So yeah, I think this is just another kind of Brighton magic where in 2 or 3 years going to be selling him on for 30, 40 million because of course that's what they do best. But yeah, I think this is going to be a great transfer for them.
Yeah, the upside with this move I think is just absolutely phenomenal. And of course, Gitano, we did not cover every single transfer that occurred this transfer window. Were there any others that caught your eye prior to the deadline day?
So there was actually quite a few. The biggest one that caught my eye was Evan Ferguson going on loan. It's a straight loan, no obligation or clauses to buy, just a straight up loan from Brighton to West Ham. I think this is just desperately what West Ham need. Is just he's the most West Ham striker I can think of. Just huge body, can just kind of just get his head on those crosses. Like he's just got West Ham written all over him. I think this is a great short-term move for West Ham while they kind of figure out what the future is with that squad. Even the managerial stuff, like, it's all a little bit topsy-turvy for them right now. But I've got a feeling we've seen Evan Ferguson bang them in the Premier League before. I feel like he's just going to kind of pick it up kind of right away with West Ham here. I think it's going to be a great little loan signing for them.
Yeah, I think it's actually a really move from West Ham. You bring in somebody who's already Premier League proven, somebody who can just hit the ground running. I think that this is a great one for them. And like you said, it's exactly what they need at this moment in time. And one that really caught my eye, I guess, is kind of off the grid because it's outside of Europe's Big Five. But I'm actually going to the championship, and Marcus Edwards to Burnley on loan from Sporting. And this is the really cool thing, and I'm sure that this has happened in the past, but maybe it hasn't been so widely publicized. If Burnley get promoted back to the Premier League, they will pay Sporting an extra 9 million, assuming that they get promoted back, which I thought was just so cool. So Burnley's putting a lot of faith into this player, obviously to be brought in from Sporting. And if they get promoted back to the Premier League, Sporting get a nice little wad of cash. And yeah, I think right now Burnley in the championship have only conceded 9 goals this season. They're on pace to like shatter all kinds of records. So you'd assume that their promotion to the Premier League is almost imminent. And Gitano, let's talk a little bit here in a little bit greater depth. Who were the winners of this January transfer window for you?
So I'll start off close to home. I think Man City. I don't think it was a perfect transfer window, but I think for kind of what we needed immediately, which was a defensive midfielder and a backup for Rodri, we got that in Nico Gonzalez and Omar Marmoush. And then also kind of strengthening the back line with some really, really young players in Victor Risch and Abdulkadir Kushanov. I think it's like an 8.5, 9 out of 10 window. Kind of address the current like needs of the squad and some future needs. Brought in some quality players, and I also don't think we like overpaid really on anyone. It was mostly some release clauses. So I thought that was a pretty fantastic window for Man City.
Excellent. And I'm going to start with Manchester City as well. I think that they did outstanding business, brought in 4 quality players. I'd give it 4 stars out of 5, just similar to what you said. A very good transfer window for what they needed, given the fact that you guys have struggled a little bit this season. I'm also going to say Aston Villa. I think Aston Villa did incredible this window in terms of what they lost. They basically supplemented and brought in. They also got to keep hold of Ollie Watkins after Arsenal tried to make a bid for him, which got rejected, and all of these sorts of things. So Aston Villa with a very good window, in my opinion. I'm also going to give a shout out to Atletico Madrid. I think the signing of Vermeeren just really, helps them and bodes well for them because they're going to be pushing for major honors this year with La Liga and the Champions League. So I think that's a good signing for them. And I'm also going to give a shout out to Benfica because they brought in Manu Silva, Bruma, and Samuel Dahl. And they also had 2 outgoings, one of which is on loan, and they can have that player come back. So I think for Benfica, a very good window as well, but one that wasn't really discussed in the wider footballing public. So, Gitano, time to rip off the Band-Aid, at least for me. The losers of the transfer window. Go for it.
So I assume you're going to say Arsenal, so I'll leave them to you. So I think Villa kind of sit in the middle there. I think they did a lot of business. I am not convinced that all of their business is going to turn out great. Marco Asensio, Daniel Malin, I think will be fine, but Disasi's not been great. Rashford's been super hot and cold. So I think there's a potential for this window to be super fantastic for them, but I also think that this window could be like just a crash and burn window for them if none of these signings stick. So they're not entirely losers, but I also don't see them as entirely winners. I will put Manchester United in the straight up losers category. Really, the only deal they did was send out Rashford on loan, and then brought in Drogo, the left back, which is just again not what this squad needs right now. They just needed more players in. They need to get some of that deadwood out of there, and they did none of it. And then I think that's really it. I'm torn on Tottenham's window because I do think bringing in Matthias Tell on loan with an obligation to buy is a really good piece of business. But just like kind of the injury crisis they're having in defense and not bringing in any more kind of reinforcements there, whether on loan or on permanence, I think they're definitely going to regret that in the later stages of the season.
And you know what? Again, I'd be the first person to put Tottenham in the losers category, but the reason why I didn't is because they actually were trying to be ambitious in the window. They legitimately went for 5 different players, landed 2 in the goalkeeper, and then obviously Matthias Tell. But yeah, the only thing with Villa is that I've got great faith in Unai Emery. I think that with him at the helm there, I think that he can almost make magic of anybody. He's almost like I don't want to put him in the same bracket as Pep, but like somebody who
he's in the bracket under though. He's right there.
Yeah, like if you're going there, you know what to expect. There's no secrets, there's no surprises. This is what you have to do in order to get on. And I actually wouldn't even I wouldn't be surprised if Marcus Rashford ends up doing well there. I just have this weird feeling about it, but I definitely do respect your opinion regarding Aston Villa possibly being on the slight loser side. I get it. Um, for me, I'm going to put Juventus straight off the bat. If you go and read anything regarding Juventus right now, the fans are furious with the sporting director for not strengthening the squad as much as they needed to, given the fact that they started off good in Serie A. They've completely and totally dipped off since. So Juventus, I'm going to put in the loser category. Inter as well. They've had a lot of challenges in offloading the fringe players in their squad to balance their books, and they really didn't secure anyone to help with the squad harmony. I think that was pretty evident today with their loss. So I'm going to start there with Italy City, Juventus, Inter as losers of the window. I'm also with you, Manchester United. The club's in disarray. They brought in one player, which was, like I said, it's not even a stopgap signing. It's more of a here's what we need for our system. But again, they didn't really bring in the pieces that they needed, full stop. And finally, I've got to say Arsenal has to be said. And I hope to be proven wrong. I really do. I hope that Arsenal score a plethora of goals and it turns out that they don't need a striker and that me and everybody else is wrong. I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think I'm going to be wrong. I desperately believe that we needed a striker. And the giveaway for me was Mikel Arteta's most recent press conference that he was disappointed in the window that the club never brought anybody in. And I think that Ollie Watkins big, I think that was a bit, excuse me, I think that was a smoke screen. I really do. Like, let's just throw something out there just to show fans that we're trying to get something. Villa's never going to let him go for 60 million after they lost John Duran. I thought it was really, really foolish. So I could be on this forever, and we do have to move on. But really disappointed with Arsenal's transfer window, given the injuries, given the fact that we needed a striker, and as they say, let's see what happens. And I really do hope that I'm going to be proven wrong. So, Gitano, the surprise team who, in your opinion, did good business this window, maybe not too many people are talking about.
Um, it's tough because I think most of the big moves um, kind of happen that way for, like there's not a lot of big surprises. Um, I really think that kind of the Omar Marmoush just kind of came out of nowhere, materialized very quickly, and just, became, I think, probably the best signing of the window, in terms of like good surprises. Bad surprises, if I can throw this one here, Neymar going back to Santos in Brazil. He made 7 appearances for Al Hilal. That's it.
And
So for all the,
I don't know the amount that he got from that deal. I remember we talked about it previous. He got a lot of money.
he got a whole lot of money to make 7 appearances. He's back in Brazil now, and I think like from a nostalgia and emotional standpoint, it's fantastic. But um, it's just a shame to kind of see how his career has kind of gone off the rails. Um, I don't know if you saw the clip of him when he like came out for his Santos like unveiling. He like couldn't get down on like both knees to like kiss the pitch because his one knee is so bad.
Yeah.
So like it's great for the for the nostalgia and the kind of the emotion of the game and like the storybook of the game. But in terms of like actual business, awful move.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's the sentimentality of it, isn't it?
Exactly.
I'm gonna go with a team on this one. I'm gonna say Wolves. And Wolves, I think they kept a few players around that they desperately needed to keep around. Like thankfully that they didn't leave, the likes of Mateus Cunha and others. And they brought in some pieces to really fill some holes that they had in their team, particularly from a defensive point of view. And I can't say that definitely secures their safety in the Premier League, but it certainly gives them a much better chance than the likes of Leicester and Ipswich Town. So I say that Wolves is the team who did surprisingly good business this window, which maybe not too many people are really talking about. And Gitano, the shock transfer this window goes to who?
There was a couple. I think when you just like think of Marcus Rashford not playing for United, it feels very weird. Considering he burst onto the scene at what, like 16, 17 for the first team. Feels like he's just been there forever. And to see him at Villa now, mind you, like he kind of failed upwards there because Villa are doing significantly better in kind of all aspects than United. But yeah, I think it's just got to be that. Like if you had, pitched me this transfer like at the beginning of the season or beginning of the window, like it wouldn't have sat right with my like head. It wouldn't have clicked. But here we are.
Yeah, here we are indeed, and it was a surprising move. But the manager made his feelings, as in Ruben Ammer, and that is he
Yeah.
made his feelings very clear that if you're not going to work at training and you're not going to have the right attitude, you won't be a part of my setup. And now he's going to Villa. But again, I've got great faith in Unai Emery at Villa that he can really make things happen there. The shock transfer this window might be a bit of a cop out. I'm going to say John Duran, only because of his age, only because of his quality, only because he's been doing incredibly well as of late in the past 2 seasons. And for him to go out to Saudi at such a young age was something that really surprised me. Didn't see it coming. Again, makes sense from a money perspective, but I just didn't see it coming. So it definitely shocked me. And Gitano, who in your opinion was the best signing of this transfer window?
Um, Again, I'm going to kind of lean City. I think short term anyway. Short term, I think Nico Gonzalez is probably going to have the biggest impact on the remainder of the season of any signings. Just he's going to bring stability into that City team. I'm not saying that we're going to go out and win a treble or do anything crazy, but I think the kind of the poor form, the inconsistency, the gaping hole we've had in midfield, I think he's going to solve that issue, which is probably like the best in terms of short term. And then long term, I think I don't know. There's been a couple of I think Matthias Tell might turn good for Tottenham if they can kind of get their shit together around him. He's looked really promising out in Bayern. You just hear all like the great things said about him in Germany. So I think if Tottenham kind of get organized and get their shit going and sticks around, because I really do hope he does. I think the board would be foolish to sack him. I feel like Matthias Tell could be one of the better deals to come out of this window.
Now, I could be wrong on this, and you might be able to provide some clarity on it. Matthias Tell, am I right in saying that Tottenham went in for him, he told them no, was looking for other clubs, and then went back and said, yeah, I'll join?
As far as I've heard, I've heard like different variations of that story. I heard there were other clubs that were in on him. I don't know why those deals didn't work out. But yeah, they definitely got rejected, and then the bid accepted. So
Yeah. Now, again, we're only hearing this from an outsider's perspective. If that actually did happen, I guarantee you that deal is going to be a disaster. I bet you he's going to just do awful. Because how could you not want to go to a club and then come back and say, yeah, okay, I'll come? It just doesn't make any sense. But
I
if
mean, depends what other clubs were in for him too.
Arsenal wanted him, I know Arsenal
Yeah.
wanted everyone. Called me last weekend.
After your performance at futsal last night, I'm surprised they weren't on the phone for you.
Hey, yeah, I know, but they would have wanted to watch my first half in front of a goal. Kai Havertz looked like number 9 Lionel Messi prime. But second half, different story. But no, I think that definitely is a good move. I think you're going to be happy with what I'm going to say. I think Omar Marmoush, I think that one for me is the biggest one of this window, the best one, only because the hype around that signing initially, I mean, Arsenal fans lost their mind in a pretty negative way because they're like, how can City get Marmoush and we're not going to get anything? And I think that he is going to be a very, very good player. And I'm also going to give an honorable mention to Xavi Simons because I really rate him as a player.
And we've seen what he's done at Leipzig. It's
Yeah.
it's not an unknown. Like we know what he's going to do there.
Exactly. He's shifty. He's crafty. He knows how to score goals. He's a great playmaker, and his work rate is insane. So I give him an honorable mention in addition to Omar Marmoush as the best signing of the transfer window. And Gitano, what would you rate this transfer window out of 10?
For a January transfer window, I think it was kind of lacking in kind of star power moves. We've seen a couple of Januaries be like that, but I thought this was a really solid window in terms of like the amount of moves and the quality of moves. So I'd probably give it like a 7.5, 8. I thought it was like a really interesting window kind of from start to finish.
Awesome. For me, yeah, I'm gonna give it a 6. I went just a little less than you. Looking at a lot of forums online, a lot of people giving it 3 and 4s, which I think is absolutely insane. How you give this transfer window a failing grade, I just don't understand, especially with the amount of business that was done. Typically, we don't see a lot of business done in January, but generally speaking, this window is a lot different. So I'm going to give it a 6, and I totally agree with your rating too. I could certainly give it higher than what I give it. But Gitano, just like that, the January transfer window is officially closed for another year. So it was a pleasure covering this one with you again, brother.
Absolutely. Silly Seasons is my favorite time of year. And it's going to be like a couple of shows from now. We're going to start talking about the hype for the summer transfer window. And it's just the best. But no, I really enjoyed covering this window with you, especially given I don't mean to kind of rub salt in the wounds here, but given the amount of business City did, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, and you deserve to boast and brag about that. And I'll weep here as Arsenal didn't do the business. And I know I made the joke about Kai Havertz. As anybody who's watched our show, we've had conversations. I like Kai Havertz as a player. I love the fact that he's an Arsenal player. Just that he's not a striker. It's just as
No.
simple as not a striker. So I would have loved for Arsenal to get a striker in the door, but we move and we'll see what happens moving forward. And the final numbers across the world of football. This January transfer window, a total of 565 deals completed and a grand total of 1.1 billion spent across world football. Let's get into Europe's Big Five, and we're going to get it started with the English Premier League. Liverpool remain top with 56 points. Arsenal is second with 50 points. Nottingham Forest is third with 47 points. Chelsea moves into fourth with 43 points. G, your thoughts on the title race at this moment in time?
Yeah, I mean, I still can't believe Forrest are sitting up there. It blows my mind looking at it every time. And again, like they're not there by luck. They've been one of the best teams in Europe, honestly, so far this season. Um, but right now, yeah, it's starting to look like it's Liverpool's to lose. The kind of every passing game week, it almost feels like that the 1920 Liverpool where it didn't matter how poorly they played, they just found ways to win games. It's starting to feel a lot like that. Um, and honestly, I'm kind of glad City are not in the title race in quotations, because I remember just how frustrating that was to watch when it felt like it didn't matter. They could be down 10-0 with 2 minutes left and they were going to win 11-10. Like I'm getting those vibes off this Liverpool team. So it's kind of great that City aren't overly involved in the title race, but I still think it's going to be a nail biter.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it will be. I'm hoping that Liverpool drops some points as the season kind of ticks along and Arsenal can kind of pick up the slack along the way. But in the case of Nottingham Forest, I mean, why not dream, right? Those fans got to be buzzing. I don't think I know any Nottingham Forest fans, and I'm not digging. I just don't think I know any.
Yeah.
But I think it's just brilliant for them to be challenging at the top. It's really cool to see a new face up there. And in the relegation zone, Southampton and Ipswich Town remain, and it's Leicester who drop back in. Wolves get out just temporarily with their most recent win, which was a great game, by the way. I watched that one start to finish. I thought that was just awesome. The emotion in that stadium, even with the manager, just unbelievable. Do you think that with the business that Wolves did this window, I picked them as my sort of surprise team of the window. Do you think that they may end up solidifying safety?
Well, not immediately because they do play Liverpool next, so that's probably
Yeah.
not going to go well for them. But I definitely do think out of those teams and kind of the bottom, I definitely think they did the best business. Um, in terms of like actively trying to avoid relegation. So yeah, I mean, any business is better than no business in that kind of situation. So I definitely think they did the most to put themselves in a good spot. I definitely like the deals that they made enough that I think they might be able to kind of pull this off now.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. And obviously, I've made my feelings very clear that I think that this really propels Wolves forward above the other ones. In Italy, Serie A, it's Napoli who remain top with 54 points. After Inter's loss today, they are second with 51 points. Atalanta is third with 47 points. Gee, what can we say right now for Serie A?
Yeah, it's still really tight up at the top. It's funny you mentioned Inter losing that game against Fiorentina today. They also play them in the next match week, just the way the schedule works out. So kind of have a chance for revenge, try and get those 3 points back and get them closer to Napoli. But yeah, I think we've kind of seen like the top 3 or 4 kind of solidified. I think now I don't think there's going to be much movement of teams coming in and out of that top 4. Where the 4 sit will change. But I really think it's looking like it's going to be a Napoli and Inter title race here.
Yeah, me too. And we'll see if Inter's lack of business in the winter will come back to bite them or not. But I still think that this is certainly far from over. In Spain's La Liga, it is tight. Real Madrid hold a 1-point lead over second place Atletico Madrid with 49 and 48 points, respectively. Barcelona has 45 points in third, with Athletic Club having 41 points. Gee, are we looking at a proper title race here?
Especially considering that Real and Atletico play each other in the next match week, absolutely. Anytime they play, whether it's a friendly or European or domestic competition, it's always like fireworks. But when you're playing with a point separating you at like the halfway point of the season, at the top of the table as well, it's just going to be. I don't think the word war is like can describe it enough. I think that's going to be one of the best games of the season across the whole of Europe, and I really think whoever kind of gets that result is going to really propel themselves. Again, maybe not guaranteed they're going to win the title, but I think kind of having that feather in the cap of, hey, we just beat our closest our like literal local closest rival and biggest title competitor, I think will be massive for whatever team gets the 3 points.
Totally agree, man. And one of the unknown questions in football is who writes the script. And I really would like to know, but this one couldn't be scripted any better at this moment in time. Out in Germany, it's the Bundesliga, and Bayern remain in the driver's seat there with 51 points. Leverkusen remain in touching distance with 45 points. Frankfurt is third with 38 points. Leipzig right now holding down fourth with 33 points. Gee, this two-horse race is becoming more interesting by the week, so it seems. And any dropped points will seem borderline hurtful to either club, won't it?
Yeah, I mean, even that. So in their last 5 games, Bayern have won all 5. Leverkusen have won 4 and drawn 1, and like that 2 points just feels absolutely massive for them to have dropped. And again, so Germany, they play a shorter season with only 18 teams in the league. So those 2 drop points are just huge. It just feels so massive, and really, I don't think they can afford to lose many more points at this point in the season, or else you might as well just hand the title to Bayern right now.
I would think so because Bayern, they might drop a point here or there, a couple points here or there, but you know that they're going to be few and far between. So if you're Leverkusen, you practically have to look at everything as being we got to win basically every game that we're in to stand a chance. And in France's Ligue 1, PSG remain unbeaten with 15 wins and 5 draws. They have 50 points. Marseille is second with 40 points, and Monaco is third with 37 points. Gitano, is it too early to give the shout that PSG might be asking themselves in the locker room the pertinent question of, can we go the entire season unbeaten?
I'm going to knock on wood as I say it. I think that's the last thing being talked about in that training ground. Or it should be anyways. Like the mentality should be kind of, game by game. Like we're not getting too far ahead of ourselves. But I think anytime you kind of speak that stuff into existence, or you try to speak that type of stuff into existence, you're just asking for trouble. I just think of how many times Pep got asked about the quadruple.
Yeah.
And then, and it was you just shouldn't you shouldn't be thinking that way. You should just be kind of thinking game by game. I think if they do start thinking that way, we're going to go unbeaten, can we go unbeaten? I think that's when you're going to see a little bit of a poor run of form from them.
See, here's my thinking on this, and I'm a little bit different to you. Which finally on our show we have a bit of disagreement as we've had over
for the first time in like 2.5 years.
Right. So the way I think is that obviously they never say that in front of the manager, but don't you think okay, so the locker room is managed by senior players in French, and I know you know the language, I really don't, but don't you think that they're nudging each other saying we could walk this? Like, given how the season has gone, like we could walk this.
I feel like the senior players there, the younger players might be saying that, but I feel like if I'm a senior player and I hear a younger player say something like that, I'm chiming in and saying, hey, we're focused on this weekend and that is it. That's how I would run my locker room. But yeah, I feel like that's kind of, and especially because a lot of the senior players at PSG have been winning titles recently, you kind of want to instill that, and they won it as younger players with more senior players, the Lionel Messi's, the Zlatan Ibrahimovic, those kind of players in the squad. You kind of want that message kind of relayed through to these new guys. So that's how I would approach it. But yeah, I definitely don't think that's like an openly talked about thing in that locker room for sure.
I would approach it the exact same way, and anybody were to bring that up, that's a backhander for them.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. But where their focus needs to be, obviously, at least in my opinion, yes, every game for sure. But if anything, it's got to be on the Champions League because they can't have the woeful mess that they've been having down the years continue. But at least we were able to generate a little bit of discussion in France's League because it's been tough at this point. But that is largely the look at Europe's Big Five. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you are listening to Full Time on 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. Check out the Pizza Portal app for a quicker, easier way to get your next hot and ready pizza. The Carabao Cup semifinals are officially wrapped up, and we have determined who will be in the Carabao Cup final. G, before we get into the analysis of these ties, what were your overall thoughts on the semifinals?
I feel they were slightly less entertaining than I was hoping for. I thought the first legs were actually both really good. The second legs in both games were just kind of, it almost felt like by the books, just kind of exactly what we were like not wanting from the games. Just not the most exciting, enthralling, like captivating games. But I mean, at the end of the day, the results were not terrible for me. Sorry. But yeah, I just thought the games were less exciting than I was hoping for.
Yeah, less exciting for sure. And we're going to get into obviously the winners here, and both winners, in my opinion, totally and deservedly go through. And let's first start with Newcastle and Arsenal. It was a replica performance for Newcastle over their two legs versus Arsenal as they defeat the Gunners by a score of 2-0, not once but twice, and thus they went on an aggregate score of 4-0 and moved themselves on to the Carabao Cup final. Gee, in my opinion, anyways, I'm not sure that we're going to have to spend a lot of time on this. I think it's really simple to explain. Newcastle over the two legs were simply better. Arsenal did not take chances, and just about every facet of their play, Newcastle had Arsenal's number. But I'm interested to know your perspective here.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief because they are your team, and I feel like your opinion in in this discussion has a little more weight to it. But yeah, like you said, like just Newcastle was just better in every aspect in both games. It just felt like Newcastle wanted it more. And we've been talking about how like this has been an ownership group that, and the players group as well. But the ownership wants a trophy, like for the amount of money they've put into this team now over the last couple of years, like that real push for a Carabao Cup would be, would basically be a Champions League for them at this point. So I think I think that group just wanted it more. I do think Arsenal, specifically for the second leg, I think they were just kind of emotionally exhausted after the game against City on the weekend. Anytime you have a big match like that, you get whether you get the result or not, but I think they just overexpended themselves emotionally in that game. And when it came to Newcastle at St. James Park as well, it was at St. James Park, right?
It was.
Yeah, they just walked into not a trap, but it was just kind of a worst case scenario for them where they just didn't have the emotional gas to really give it. And that St. James Park crowd absolutely lit a fire. I think a fire would be like an understatement. They lit like a forest fire under that Newcastle team. And yeah, it was just, I don't want to say easy for Newcastle, but it definitely was not as hard as probably they were expecting it to be.
Dude, there's so many things to unpack with this one. Obviously, the first leg, I think, simply, again, Arsenal not good enough. Early on in the match, didn't take their chances. Newcastle make them pay. Okay, get the first leg out of the way. Coming into the second leg, like you said, Arsenal emotionally exhausted coming out of that Manchester City game from the weekend. But I still didn't expect them to go out with a whimper. Like, I didn't expect Arsenal to go out with a whimper, but they did. And again, early on in the match, chances. But if you hit goalposts and you miss sitters and all these sorts of things, all you do is you just give the other team momentum. I don't care if that happens at our level where we play. I don't care if that happens at semi-professional level or where these guys are playing. You're giving ammunition to the opposition. And at St. James's Park, I actually think now, just really going into that game, I think it's got to be the toughest away ground. And the reason I say that is because you got to travel the furthest to get there. And it kind of reminds me of Sault Ste. Marie in a sense, where we got to travel everywhere, by long distances. And if you take a look at where the away fans have to sit, they might as well be on the moon. They're in that top left-hand corner. It's the only away ground where you have to stay there. Like all the other away grounds, they put you in a section close to the pitch. So
here's the thing. I love that though. When I watch a City game especially, it kills me when I see the away fans behind the goal on the right hand side. It kills me. Bury the away fans in the furthest corner from the pitch. Get them as far away from everything as possible. And again, that's my personal preference. But I love it at St. James Park. I think that's one of the that's an away day that I would absolutely kill to do.
See, and a lot of fans just like, and I watch a lot of Arsenal fan TV. A lot of people are really ticked off because they're saying, there's whatever there was, like 8,000 of them or however
Yeah,
many, and they get stuck in that corner up there, and the players can't hear them, and all of these sorts of things. It's like they're non-existent.
that's the
And
point.
I
That's
oh,
the
100%,
point.
100%. At the same time, too, these fans pay their money, and it's like every other ground that we go to, we get to be pitch side and enjoy the atmosphere, and then when we come here, we can't. But every club gets to run their stadium how they want to
Yeah.
run it. As James's Park has been doing this basically since forever. So yeah, in the case of Arsenal, they didn't deserve to go through, but in my opinion, it's less about Arsenal, more about Newcastle. And I do hope when they go to the final, even though we're not doing predictions today, I hope that they can go and get a trophy because it's been over 60 years since they've won anything. Now, Gitano, let's move on to Liverpool and Tottenham. After Tottenham took a 1-0 lead on aggregate in the first leg, it was Liverpool who were dominant as ever in the second leg, and they win by a score of 4-0, and thus they move on to the Carabao Cup final. So I'll turn it over to you, sir, for your thoughts and opinions.
Yeah, this one played out pretty much exactly how we were talking about it, where if it was a one-off game, Tottenham might have a chance of squeaking a 1-0, which they did in the first leg. But over two legs, you just expect Liverpool's firepower to just outgun Tottenham. I talked earlier about Tottenham having a bunch of defensive injuries and frailties there, and it was just kind of a matter of time before Liverpool's offense got going against them, and for them to rout them for 4 in the second leg was pretty much what everyone was expecting. So no real surprises there. Liverpool definitely rightfully through the final.
Yeah, without question. And I don't think that there's a ton to talk about. Obviously, Tottenham is a very injury-ridden squad right now, and Liverpool are just flying high. So I knew that they were going to win that second leg. I didn't think necessarily it'd be 4-0. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I think that we all knew based on our predictions as well that Liverpool was going to win. So they go to a Carabao Cup final and a shot at winning the first trophy of their season in about a month's time. So, Gitano, to review our picks, you went 100%. You got Newcastle correct. You got Liverpool correct. So well done. I went
Thank you very
50.
much.
No problem. I went 50%. Obviously, I picked Arsenal, but I also did pick Liverpool, which was certainly the sensible thing to do. So that basically that sets up a final of Newcastle and Liverpool, which we are going to cover in probably not our next show, but certainly the show after that in previewing that Carabao Cup final. It's going to be a good one for sure. Moving along, it is the Champions League that we are preparing for once again, this time for the knockout round. G, we've been talking about it like crazy. It's a new format this year altogether, but we are getting ready for the knockout phase where teams will battle out to try and get into the round of 16. So how excited are you, my friend?
I'm excited and I'm nervous and I don't really know what to expect. It's really weird looking at, I've got the table up on my monitor here, the bracket, and it's all like, blank team is playing this team or that team because it's all these seeding things with what's this, round of 32, I guess, kind of ish.
20, is it 24?
Yeah, it's weird. No, it's not. Yeah, it's not around to 32 because it's half the teams are already in. But yeah, so it's this weird. The table just looks weird. I don't know how I like it right now. But for the games themselves, obviously super excited.
Yeah, man, it's I think it's going to be great, and it is slightly confusing. Like I looked at just Arsenal's route, and I think that there's like 4 different teams that they could play. I think
Oh
it's
yeah,
PSV. I want to say
it's
Milan,
Juve, PSV,
Right?
or Feyenoord or Milan. So
There
yeah,
you go.
Milan clubs. Yeah, it's a whole fucking
Yeah,
game.
it's a whole thing. But regardless of the fact that it's so new to us and what have you, what we are going to do right now is we are going to preview for the first time ever this round of the Champions League. And remember, the winners of these games move on to the round of 16 in the Champions League, where things kind of get very traditional from that point forward. So, Gitano, first, let's talk about Brest and PSG. So, who do you like over two legs, Gitano?
If it was a one-off game, I would say Brest. I think we know this PSG team is kind of weak in Europe mentally, and I think if it was just a one game, I think Brest might be able to kind of get their number. But I think over two legs, PSG have enough quality; they should be winning this tie.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think maybe PSG in the Champions League, they've picked up I don't know, some form of confidence or momentum, if you like, if you even want to call it that. But over two legs, to your point, can't really see PSG letting this one down. I think getting to the round of 16, well, we could definitely have a much different conversation about PSG. But right now, I am like you. I'm also going to pick them. Sporting and Dortmund will clash in the Champions League. Gee, I really like this matchup. I don't think that too many people maybe will see it the same way that I do, but I think this is going to be not necessarily an all-time, but I think it's just going to be a great matchup. Who do you have winning it?
I'm going to take Sporting. I think Victor Gyökeres is just probably the hottest striker in the world right now. And we've seen Dortmund, they've not been having the best season, having some defensive struggles, which I think Sporting and Victor Gyökeres are really going to exploit. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be like, I'm not going to blow them out of the water, but I definitely think Sporting are going to go through reasonably comfortably.
Yeah, man, you and me both. I got Sporting just the same. I really rate Gyökeres. I think he's just an unbelievable player. Would have loved if Arsenal signed. And I think he's actually, I know Arsenal like basically flirted with every player in the market, but I think he may have been the most heavily linked one. But yeah, I got Sporting going through, man. They've been playing some great stuff, and I think that they're going to score some goals as well. Juventus will battle PSV. Gitano, who wins and why?
I want to say PSV are going to win this. I just think Juve are faltering a little bit. Obviously, we were talking about the unrest off the field. I think there's some unrest in the locker room as well. It's just kind of how things have transpired there. Yeah, I just think PSV are a little more cohesive as a unit. I think that Juve team they're okay. Still really young as well. So I feel like this is probably just maybe like a unfortunate learning curve for them. But yeah, it's gonna be close, but I'm gonna take PSV.
Fair enough. And I was really wrestling with this one big time. And in the end, the reason why I decided on my pick is for a reason that I think is going to be kind of comical and humorous. I'm picking Juventus, and only because down the years, every time that there's any discontent at that club, a big win always solves the problem. That's for at least 8 months. So I'm going to take Juventus purely for that reason, just because the discontent at that club is pretty high right now, but they'll win this one, in my opinion, and all will be
And
forgotten.
everything will be fine.
But don't worry, next season the same problems will rear their ugly heads once again. Manchester City and Real Madrid lock horns in the marquee matchup of this round. Gitano, take it away. I'm not going to say anything.
All right, so this is the fourth time in the last 5 years that we've played Real Madrid in the Champions League. It's actually been 50-50. We've knocked them out twice. They've knocked us out twice. We're kind of shit right now. I love Nico Gonzalez. I think he's going to be great. I don't think he immediately makes us better than Real Madrid. I don't think Omar Marmoush makes us better than Real Madrid. The only hope is that Real Madrid are kind of having an injury crisis in defense. So Alaba, Militao, Rudiger, and one more of their defenders. I think it was Ferland Mendy. I think like they're all out injured. So City's real only hope is that Real Madrid's bench options in defense, or like the youth players they bring up from their academy, are worse than we are right now. So I'm gonna take City, because I'm never gonna not take City, but this is probably the least confident I've been in saying City are gonna win in a very long time.
It's so interesting because I look at it from two different perspectives. I think that one story can be told that, well, look at the business that City did this window to really help their squad. There's, of course, they're going to beat Real Madrid because of that business, plus the superstar power that they already have. But then the other side of the story is that it's Real Madrid and it's the Champions League. So it's like, how do you go against that? So again, similar to the PSV Juventus one, I've been really tussling with this, and I'm not going to say my answer because I want to go against you, because down the years I've picked City almost as much as you have, just slightly less. I am going to say Real Madrid purely because of their pedigree in this competition, and I think that they just might get one up on City. And I do feel as though City's struggle maybe in this season might continue before a huge turnaround next season. So I'm going to take Real Madrid. Club Brugge takes on Atalanta. Gee, it's kind of an interesting one here. What do you foresee happening?
Yeah, it's interesting, but Atalanta have been one of the hottest teams in Serie A and all of Europe this season, and as good as Club Brugge have been, because they were on a 19-game unbeaten streak that included some pretty heavy European giants, including Juventus, until City beat them in the last match week of the Champions League. So they're not, they're not going to totally roll over and die here, but I do think Atalanta are going to go through.
Yeah, man, I'm with you there. I think just with the sort of striking ability and sort of forward play that Atalanta have, they can almost just outscore Bruges, if that makes sense. I know we don't typically say that in this sport in particular, but I do believe that Atalanta is at that stage where Club Bruges might get 2 or 3, but Atalanta is going to get more than that. So I don't think that Atalanta can sustain that throughout the competition because you do got to defend in order to win. But I think for this round, I think to your point, Atalanta will go through. Celtic take on Bayern. G, your take on this one?
Again, this is one of the same as kind of the PSG and Bressinger. If this is a one-off, I wouldn't hate Celtic's chance. I think they're good enough as a unit to kind of get a result off Bayern, but I just think over 2 legs, even if they get a result in the first leg, it's just too much. Like Bayern's just too good, and especially they've been really good in Europe this year. So I really think that it's not going to be easy, but I think Bayern are going to go through.
Is it bad that I think that this one's going to be like 9-2 on aggregate for Bayern? I don't know why.
Like, no, I mean, it's one of those ones, right? Like when I think of Celtic in the Champions League, I just think of them beating Barcelona.
Remember
And
that?
who was the celebrity that was like crying in the stands, the Celtic fan? It was
Oh,
Rod Stewart. It was Rod Stewart,
Rod
like
Stewart?
crying in the stands, after Celtic beat Barcelona. So like, I really struggle to not kind of
Yeah.
picture that when I think of Celtic playing big European giants. But yeah, like rightfully, like they're Bayern Munich, and they've been one of the best teams, if not the best team in Europe this year. So putting up 9 and only conceding 1 or 2 is not out of the realms of possibility.
Yeah, and I don't want to be disrespectful towards Celtic because they're in the Champions League every year and they're competing for their league every single year. But yeah, I've got Bayern to win this one relatively convincingly, let's put it that way. Monaco and Benfica will duke it out on the pitch during this round. G, who comes out on top?
This is probably one of my like favorite matchups of this round, in terms of like, I feel like this is probably the most even matchup that we've seen. I think this is a coin toss, and I've actually flipped a coin a handful of times for it, and just kind of on the coin toss, Benfica.
Dude, I've also got Benfica, and I talked about them earlier in our show here to say the business that they did this window. I think that's going to pay dividends, and I think that they are going to beat Monaco, and I think Benfica are also going to go through. I think a January like that can really give a positive spark to a team, which makes me sound like a hypocrite because I picked Real Madrid over Manchester City. But I do believe that Benfica will go through over the likes of Monaco, and the only reason I say that too is because I mean Benfica aren't playing against Real Madrid, right? So
Exactly.
we'll both take Benfica there. And Gitano, the last one here, it's Feyenoord that will go toe to toe with Milan. Who is going to move on to the round of 16?
So kind of for almost the same reasons you just said, for Benfica going through, I've got Milan going through. They brought in firepower in the window. The move we didn't talk about was them bringing João Felix on loan from Chelsea, 6 months after he signed a 7-year deal there. But that's not the point. I think, and he's the type of player, he plays well for the first 5-10 games as new club and then trails off. And this fixture, like both legs of the fixture are going to like fall within that kind of 10-game window. So I think he's going to be fantastic. We've seen Santiago Jimenez already hit the ground running there. I think they're just better than Feyenoord. I think they're going to go through.
Yeah, man. For all the reasons that you said, I really couldn't have worded it any better, even if I tried. It's got to be Milan to go through. So I'm on the same page as you. And I hate to go back and ask something that we've already covered the show. When we talked about the losers of the transfer window, neither of us had talked about Chelsea. Do you think it'd be wise or reasonable or credible to say that they're a loser of the transfer window?
I don't think they particularly lost this transfer window. They definitely lost in the last one. But I think kind of shipping out Deadwood is it's not winning the transfer window, but it's not losing the transfer window,
Yeah,
right?
sometimes outgoings are a good thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's an outgoing. It's a good outgoing in the fact that they don't have to pay him for the next 6 months, um, but they still have like 85 too many guys in that squad. So just the one outgoing, just it's not enough.
It certainly isn't enough. And there was a lot of talk too, like Chelsea fans saying the need to bring in a striker. It's like, oh, why don't you just go walk through your club and just go
You
say to
have
one.
eight. You pay like 8 or 9 strikers. Like, jeez.
Yeah, it's wild. I didn't put them in the losers. I know you didn't either, but certainly a conversation I was hoping that we would have. Um, and anyways, Gitano, just getting back to this now. Let's go through our picks as we approach this round of 24, or round of whatever you want to call it. You're going to go with PSG, Sporting, PSV, City, Atalanta, Bayern, Benfica, and Milan. I'm going to go with PSG, Sporting, Juventus, Real Madrid, Atalanta, Bayern, Benfica, Milan. So apart from 2 spots, we basically generally agree, as we often do. And we are so excited for this round of the Champions League. And in our next show, we'll be able to take a little bit more of an in-depth look at it. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to the Full-Time Podcast on 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. Check out the Pizza Portal app for a quicker, easier way to get your next hot and ready pizza. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Full Time. As we wrap up today's show, we want to extend our deepest debt of our gratitude for you being with us. Your support truly means the world. Gitano, great work tonight, sir.
Scarf's the same to you as well. Just we had a lot to get through here, and you've just like always done a fantastic job of kind of guiding us through here. It's always a pleasure to join you.
Yeah, man. We talked about it last night at futsal that this was going to be a longer show, and we've been doing a lot of shorter shows as of late. But it's kind of great to just bang out so many different things in this episode, and that really means that we're getting into the thick of things this season and approaching the business end. So that's always a good thing. A reminder to our listeners that the next episode of Full Time will be recorded the week of February 17th, 2025. In that show, we will take a look at Europe's Big Five and the Champions League. As always, we'll keep everyone in the loop with all of the happenings in the world of football. For weekly content, make sure to hit like, follow, and subscribe to all platforms of both the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, Podbean, and Spaces at suitoday.com. For Gaetano Gallo, my name is Daniel Scarpino, and thank you for tuning in to Full Time. We look forward to seeing you at kickoff next time, back here on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. Best always.